Hi, I'm Steve the LongAsh Cowboy, and today I'm going to discuss plume on a cigar. And today I'm going to show you a Macanudo Maduro. Now, if you can see right here, this little speck right there, and then there's another one here by my ring finger. Those little white specks, you go in a cigar shop and you see a cigar that's been left behind, or maybe a box that's been left behind for quite some time in the shop's humidor. And you may notice that one or two of them have these little white specks on them. There's another one. And you may just assume, well, that's starting to mold. Well, that's not the case. It means that they've been in perfect humidification for quite some time, and that the oils and the leaves are beginning to be released. And once they come to the surface, they begin to crystallize. And once they have crystallized, that is called plume. So what you are looking at is not mold, it's plume. And it means that this particular cigar, the Macanudo Maduro, has reached its optimum humidification. So I'm going to kick back and enjoy this and discuss something very personal with you that I promised I would do earlier last week. And that is, I told you that I would come back here and tell you about how I, the LongAsh Cowboy, was once a Satanist. In 2004, I ran for Congress of the United States in Alabama in a 62% black district. I ran as a Republican. I got no support from the Alabama Republican Party or the Republican National Committee. I approached them and said, this seat can be had. They said, no, it can't. Go away. But I hung around anyway. At the end of 2004, when I lost, went into a Great Depression. And as I would try and speak to men who claimed Christianity, white, Republican, who didn't want to hear about the fact that blacks could be brought into the Republican Party, that it would be a colossal waste of time, I became despondent. When I became despondent, one of them came to me and said, what's wrong? And I said, I just am depressed all the time now. And he ironically said, well, you need to give it to God. So one of the blacks, who is a prominent Democrat in my area and claimed Christianity, and incidentally, both of these men claimed to be ministers of the gospel, he didn't want to hear it. Republican Party had nothing for him. And as I tried to go at it from a biblical view instead of a financial view, he didn't want to hear that either. He turned and walked away. And then he saw me about a month or two later. He greeted me and said, how are you? And I said, I hate life and I wish I was dead. And ironically, he said, well, you need to turn it over to the Lord. And I said, well, that's funny, because that other person, and I named him to him, told me the very same thing. And then he became very uncomfortable. And I became more despondent. Friends of mine didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to fool with it. Until one night, a dear friend of mine was having this little informal get together where we discussed politics and news of the day, current events, etc. And at some point, I said I had become agnostic. And may I say, this plumed cigar is absolutely, absolutely fabulous. And he gave me a look of shock and near terror. And over a period of a few months, when people would still continue to refuse to listen to me, and I may add that my agnosticism was legitimate, that I began to doubt there was a Lord, I eventually became an atheist, wanting to hear nothing about our Lord, knowing that he did not exist, until at some point I reached a decision that he did exist, but that he didn't care about me. And while I didn't tell anyone at that time, uh, in the confines of my home, I became a bended knee worshiper of Satan. Not a LaVeyan Satanist, which is an atheist that likes to call themselves Satanists just to rattle Christians. I became a legitimate praying to the devil Satanist. And I just hated life, God, and almost all people. Now, this transition, ironically, I use the word transition. We'll discuss that later. This transition took 5 years, from 2005 until March the 4th, 2010, because there were few people, personally or public figures, that I had any caring for at all. I hated everybody. I hated you. I didn't even know you. But on May the 4th, 2010, traveling in Montgomery, Alabama in the noon hour, I heard country music news correspondent Jimmy Carter announce to the world that Shelley Wright had come out as a homosexual. And I was burdened for 4 or 5 hours. I didn't know what to say. I didn't sing along to the radio. I didn't talk to myself like you do sometimes when you're driving. I might add that during my 5 years, my profanities were very, very profuse. So for those of you who know me personally, when you see me react violently the way that I do, and I mean verbally violently, that's the reason. It's because I hate what you are doing to yourself. Because you may claim Christianity, but when you dance and prance around here, F this and GD that, MF, and oh, I had 2 girls the same night at the same time, and you boast about your sin, or you claim Christianity, but you also see no need for a marriage license as a heterosexual couple, and you see no harm with a homosexual couple together, whether they're married or not, you are harming yourself. And when you see me get angry, I'm angry at Satan because of what he has done to you. It took a lot for me to tell you what I'm telling you today. When I found out Shelley had come out as homosexual, she was one of the few people, and remains, that I loved very deeply. And I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And I wept. I wept a lot. After I've had time to collect myself, I'll tell you what has happened between then and now. If you have any respect for what you've heard today, please remember to hit the thumbs up. You may not like it, but you can respect it. Please hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with me. Please remember to hit the bell when it pops up so you can get future notifications. Again, thank you for watching this far. And until next time, this is the LongAsh Cowboy reminding you to keep sticks up.